and welcome to the channel. And this is one of my first videos on UK inflation. A lot has been said about how high inflation in the UK is, and how much the interest rate rises that we've seen have had an impact on the economy. So I thought it's interesting to do a video on the inflation situation in the UK and kind of sum up what happened since last year. So it really all started with soaring food and energy bills, right? I mean, that's where it all started. Like after the Ukraine war started, there's been disruption to the energy and food supply uh, in Europe, and that has fed into UK inflation via higher food and energy bills. And although the story has since changed, I mean, it's interesting how it started with soaring food and energy, but it has since spread into other areas of the economy via higher wage demands, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of industrial action since last year, like with the likes of RMT and the junior doctor strikes, and even the teachers, other parts of the economy, such as the teaching profession, they've all demanded wage increases. So that has all fed into inflation. In fact, that is the concern of the central bank is mostly wage rises, because I think the food and energy inflation, they're still high, but they've come down a lot uh, with commodity prices moderating, right? I mean, if you look at oil prices, they've really come down from the peak. So the energy inflation is not such a big concern anymore, but it's more the wage demands, like wage increases. Basically, what we call second round effect. When wage goes up, and then you risk a wage spiral. So that's why they've really hiked interest rates so much in the UK. So this is another chart that I got from the BBC article on inflation. It's the rising cost of groceries. And if you look at the rising cost of grocery, it's pretty incredible how much the basic stuff has gone up in the UK. I mean, it's really, look at sugar has gone up 54.5% on a yearly basis. Olive oil's up like 41.5. I mean, like sauces, condiments, salt, herbs, spices gone up 28.4. I mean, it's pretty incredible how much like food and drink, these basic things like food and drink that we all consume have gone up with such, at such a high speeds. I mean, but the thing about inflation is really that it hits the poor the most, right? I mean, because they're already not making a lot of money. I mean, they spend a high proportion of their income on the basic items such as food and transportation. So inflation really hits the poor, and that's what we're seeing now.
So, Bank of England. So, I've dug up some information from their website, and what the basic tenet is that they think that obviously higher rates will work to to reduce inflation because less money will be spent in the UK when rates go up, and it kind of makes sense intuitively because most of us have mortgage to pay, and when rates go up, people pay more in their mortgages, so they have less money to spend. But really, there's really two effects when you think about it a bit closer because it's a balance between savers and debtors, right? Higher rates also mean that savers get more income from their savings, even though debtors have to pay more into the system. So the two effects going on. So the question is, when rates go up, like which effects really dominate, right? So if you listen to a lot of commentators have talked about this, and the conclusion is that really interest rates is a very, very blunt tool in addressing inflation when you have a situation when inflation is more supply driven. In the past episodes of inflation that we've had in the past 30 years, most of the time it's a demand driven kind of inflation that we have. So interest rate become very effective in addressing inflation when you have a demand driven inflation situation. But right now, it doesn't appear to be, the interest rates will be very effective in terms of addressing inflation when you have a situation that inflation is much more supply driven, especially in the UK. So I think the big question for most of us uh, will be how much they have to hike interest rates in order for inflation to get back down to the 2% target they have officially. And obviously, it remains to be seen. But I personally think that there is a possibility that they might have to hike a lot more than what market is pricing in order to get inflation down sustainably. Next, I want to talk about this article that I found on this website on the conversation.com about UK inflation. So it try to explain why inflation in UK has been so high relative to Europe and United States and what we can do about it. So there are two UK specific issues that are, according to the article, are exacerbating the country's inflation problem. So the first one is Brexit, and the other one is the UK's reliance on financial services. So I think Brexit, it's most of us understand why it contributed to inflation, right? Because it reduced the flexibility of the labor market significantly, and which in turn fed into wage rises, which then contributed to inflation. And I think what I found more interesting is the second factor is UK's reliance on this financial services sector, which is very, in my experience, it's very true because I think the development of the UK economy in the past few decades has been really centered around finance, real estate. City of London has been, has grown a lot, and it has really skewed the economy towards finance. And according to the article, which I kind of agree with them as well, is that in order to address inflation, we really need much deeper reforms, right? The government needs to do something to rebalance the economy away from just focusing on finance to other industries, just science-based industries, manufacturing, uh, that would actually change the composition of the economy, and in the long run, we can reduce inflation. So hiking interest rates alone is really not enough. And in this situation, when we have supply side driven inflation, interest rate is a very blunt tool in addressing inflation. This is a chart that I downloaded from the Bank of England website, and it just shows you the history of the bank rate in the past decade or so. And before 2021, we've literally had more than a decade of almost zero rates, right? I mean, we've had some hikes along the way, hikes and cuts along the way, but they've been very close to the zero bound. And then starting in 2021, I mean, the end of 2021, they all of a sudden woke up to the fact that they've been behind the curve. So they started hiking rates really quickly, and now we're at 525. I mean, it's pretty incredible how quickly they've hiked, right? I think the pace of the rate rises is really what caught the market and everybody else. Uh, yeah, and I think the full effect on the economy really has not been felt, right? Um, there's always a lag between interest rate hikes and the effects on growth, and I think that for the rest of the year and probably starting next year, we're going to see the economy probably slowing down pretty significantly because of the rate hikes. Yeah. So what do you guys think? Think of inflation in the UK. I mean, is it hitting you personally? Do you think that interest rates will go much higher from here? What do you think the government should do in order to address the inflation problem? I mean, is inflation, are we done with inflation? Is it coming down from here all the way back to 2%, or is it still gonna be pretty high for the rest of this decade? I mean, feel free to leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to you guys more. Looking forward to hearing all your views and stories on UK inflation. Thank you.